Man, been a while since I made Genshin content, huh? Well, that's because there hasn't really been much to talk about that I was interested in. But let's just say that the recent Mualani leaks have very much interested me. And they might have interested you as well, so I'm going to be discussing them and explaining her kit. Now, Mualani is a crit rate ascending Hydro Catalyst DPS character, and her kit is going to primarily function around her very slow normal attacks that will be doing a ton of vaporize damage. So, speaking of normal attacks, let's start with the unenhanced versions of them. They remind me a lot of Klee, as she's going to just throw water bombs at the enemies, and you're not really going to be using this much. The animation is very clunky, and it's going to scale off attack while the rest of her kit scales on HP. This brings her to her elemental skill, and oh my dear god, I think Hoyo's balance team made a bit of a mistake here. She's going to start riding her surfboard, and she's just gonna be chillin', and her normal attack will be converted into a Sharky Bite, which has a 2-second cooldown. Now, how she is going to work is she's going to apply a mark on enemies when she car crashes into them with the Shark Surfboard, and when you car crash into an enemy, you will also gain a stack of wave momentum. Now, when you have 3 stacks of wave momentum, she is going to get an absolutely insane amount of extra damage onto her normal attack, so it is imperative that you use the maximum amount of car crashes possible. Now, what about AoE? Because if you've seen the animations, you know that her normal attack's AoE is kind of lackluster. Well, this is where the marked as prey comes in. Every enemy that is marked as prey is going to be receiving damage from a shark missile that will be launched when a Sharky Bite is initiated. And this missile is going to have the same multiplier as the Sharky Bite that triggered it. And if you've seen the multiplier for the Sharky Bite, this is going to not be a missile, this is going to be a nuclear bomb. Because, according to my calculations, she can very easily do 600,000 damage with this. And 600,000 damage from a normal attack is kind of stupid. To balance this in AoE a little bit, the damage will be reduced by 24% if you are fighting 3 targets. And it will be 12% if you are fighting 2 targets. So, yeah, Mualani essentially wants to car crash into an enemy 3 times, like a goddamn car crash compilation, and then she's going to use her normal attack, which will do an absolutely nuclear amount of damage. If you know how to play her well, this is going to be able to be done like 4 times, which is kind of stupendous. And then there's her ultimate, which really isn't that interesting. It's just going to be a hit of hydro damage that honestly has a lower multiplier than the normal attack, but you're still probably going to use it because you can't really do the normal attack that much. Her first one will generate a floater that gives Mualani essentially a longer duration in her skill, because at base it is pretty low. I think this is honestly not really here because Hoyo decided she should be a low duration character. I think it's more so because she's so stupidly broken that giving her a passive that actually does something good would be too strong. And then for the second passive, when a party member triggers Night Soul Burst, which is a new natlan mechanic, Mualani will gain 1 stack of Wave Chaser's exploits, which stacks up to 3 times. These stacks will increase her burst damage based on a certain amount of her HP for every stack that she has. Honestly, not that great of a passive, but that just means that you don't have to force your team around getting Night Soul Burst. It seems very clear to me that she just wants to press her E, car crash, and then normal attack. That's just kind of her entire game plan, and such brain-dead gameplay honestly fits a character that has no brain cells very well. If you've been enjoying the video so far, be sure to leave a comment, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton. Also, follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. Next up, let's discuss Mualani's team building, because she seems very obviously built towards Vaporize, considering she has very high multipliers, but she triggers them very slowly, and her weapon also has a passive relating to Vaporize, but more on that later. This means that you are going to at least want a Pyro character. It's very obvious that this Pyro character in the future is going to be Mavuika, but currently, you're gonna have to stick to Xiangling. Now, why Xiangling and not someone else? Well, Xiangling has the most reliable pyro application in the game. But what if it's not enough? Well, first of all, it's going to be enough, I'm going to assure you of that. But even then, I still think it's worth putting Nahida into the team. Now, why Nahida? Well, Nahida is going to be able to trigger burning along with Xiangling. And that means even more pyro application. So if you theoretically wanted to put someone like Farina into your team, who is able to give the entire team damage bonus, you might be able to just be able to vape all of Mualani's hits, while still having Farina obviously doing her damage with her pets. So, the burning and Xiangling together will create a lot of pyro application, and Nahida is going to buff the entire team's EM. Now, I do think that you want to build Xiangling with EM here for Burgeon, because that way you can put the instructor set on Nahida, which is going to massively bump up Mualani's damage output. And then for the last slot, I think you could go one of two ways. Either you use Zhongli for infinite comfort, because Mualani has no interruption resistance. Yes, she moves very fast, but that won't really help you in every scenario, so Zhongli is a very viable pick. He also has Universal Res Shred, but I don't think you should be running Archaic Petra on him, as I think it would just extend your rotation too much for too little benefit. Now, what's the other option? Well, I've already mentioned her. It's Farina. Now, why do I think Farina's good here? If anything, she would just steal Vaporizes, and because you don't have a healer, she's not going to get fanfare, right? Well, you can run Prototype Amber on your Nahida. That way you still have at least a little bit of healing, and if your Farina is like C1 or C2, that means you're going to still get quite a lot of fanfare out of it, but even at C0, your fanfare generation will be fine. Now, what about the issue of stealing Vaporizes? Well, the combination of Nahida and Xiangling will make that not really a big problem. Although this team will be very lacking in defenses, because burning does self-damage, Farina's going to drain your HP, and you don't have a healer or shielder. So you're going to need to be very good with this team in order to survive. Now let's look at Mualani's signature weapon, which is going to be the Catalyst Surfing Time. And I can't be the only one who sees the resemblance between these two things, right? Anyway, let's get into it. It has a base attack of 542, with 88.2% crit damage. Its passive gives you 20% max HP, and you gain 48% normal attack damage after using your elemental skill. And after your normal attack hits an opponent, you remove 1 stack. But if you trigger a Vaporize reaction, it adds 1 stacks. So eventually, it's going to slowly stack down and down if you're not using Vaporize. So yeah, I don't really like how weapons recently have been forcing specific reactions onto a character. Usually it's fine because that would be that character's best team anyway, but it really ruins the possibility for buffs for older characters. Now let's get into her constellations. And I'm just gonna say it, these constellations are absolutely insane. C1 is going to decrease the amount of points Mualani's E uses while not in combat. This is going to make her absolutely insane for exploration, but it's not over yet, because the first Sharky Surging Bite that she does, which is her level 3 normal attack, is going to get an additional 75% HP scaling. This is insane, by the way, because this means that a C1 R1 Mualani in a team of Nahida, Xiangling, and Zhongli is going to be doing nearly 900,000 damage with her first normal attack. Which, I'm just saying, that's like half the health bar of the Asimon. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. But now it's time to talk about the C2. This is just going to give Mualani 2 of her stacks when she presses her E. This just means that, hey, that front-loaded damage from your C1, you're gonna get it even faster now. But you're also going to gain 1 stack when you obtain the floater from her Ascension 1, and the amount of floaters you can spawn is increased to 2. So essentially, all of this should mean you're able to sneak in another normal attack, which is very powerful because, reminder, these normal attacks do like 500,000 damage. So, yeah, have fun with that. C3 is going to level up her skill, which is where her scaling comes from, so that's good. And then C4 is going to make Mualani regen 7 energy when she obtains a floater. And it also increases her ultimate damage by 200%. I honestly think this is not the greatest constellation because she is mainly focusing on her normal attacks and this is focusing on her burst. But it's still fine, I guess. C5 levels up the burst, which is not going to be a big increase. But then C6 is, yeah. The damage increase of C1 can now be triggered by every single normal attack. So, yeah, have fun doing 900,000 damage on literally every normal attack. But wait, that's not it. Because the crit rate and crit damage from this normal attack is also increased. Sure, it's not by much, it's only 5% and 10%, respectively, but still, you're getting a damage increase out of it. And this might get buffed in the future, although looking at Mualani right now, doubtful. Mualani seems to be an incredibly strong character, and I think she's going to be the new best DPS in the game in her current state. But the likelihood that she will get nerfed is incredibly high. So, what do you guys think of Mualani? Be sure to leave me a comment about it, and then like the video and subscribe. Also, don't forget to join my Discord and follow me on Twitter. But that'll be all from me. Peace.